Alrighty, this video is going to be a little bit more in-depth explaining some of the things that I'm doing when I'm in Chardok and other such places. So first thing I want to explain is my spell choice. This is my basic spell set for this stuff. Basically deflux is for deflux tanking. That's when I just spam my GCD and then do deflux over and over as quick as I can to tank some damage or do damage at the end of a fight or something like that. Screaming Terrors are Mez, of course. Thrall of Bones is the charm. So that'd be for mezzing something and then charming it immediately after it breaks or something like that. Gate is to bring me back to bind, which important part of doing these things is binding outside. Um, you can also Levant, but Levant has a longer cast time. And then Vexing is part of deflux tanking. Generally, you'll Vex first to give yourself a little bit of heal over time going on, and then the deflux will obviously offset the rest of the damage you're taking. Root is going to be our primary source of doing secondary aggro pools, which I will explain in this. Then I keep Quivering Veil of Zarn or Harm Shield up for DA effect, so you get 16 seconds of invulnerability. Death Piece is, of course, my Feign Death, and that's obviously just to drop aggro or to drop charm or any number of other things. So that's the general spell set. There's a handful of other honorable mentions, which will be having your line of dots ready to go, having your lich form in a good spot. So generally I'd actually start with that since I do that right when I come into a zone. Um, then you got pretty much nothing on my second page would be used, but I use my highest haste version when I'm doing charm pets, mostly because that percentage is very nice for doing damage. Um, Shield of the Magi would be the better version of Arch Shielding. I just use that because it's my clickies. So I could go through all my clickies, but I have all 5 flowers for plus $50 is pretty much. Um, got DMF Robe for free DMF. Like there's a lot of clickies in here that all equate to the way that I do things. Um, but yeah, you can use your insta click for dropping your pets if you need to. You can use Black Ceramic Band. Shout out to Asherak for making this for me. That you can click for a small life tap, which seems useless until you realize how easy it is to break a root with one of these, and free mana, and then you don't have to worry about dropping things into summoning range. There's a lot of value to having that. It's a good tag out. Yeah, it's endless use. But yeah, that's majority of the stuff I use for this. If you're more worried about speed, you can switch to using a Sal Pot, but I think Journeyman's Boots is more than efficient. Yeah, so there's nothing required here per se, except for some of the spells. But yeah, there's plenty to be said for plenty of the items and spells that are specific to how I do things that I do. But I've had a couple of requests for a little bit more of an in-depth explanation, so figured I'd give that, and hopefully that'll help some folks. So we're just making our way down into Chardok. There's two ways to get to where I'm going. One is through the tunnel up here, so you can just lev up to a higher surface and then run over there, but I won't do that. I'm going to instead go through the middle. Just open this door, and then you can drop off this bridge to the right. We could give a Chardok tour sometime, but yeah, it's the same place, so I just wanted to show you how these connect. There's the slave pits here. This is actually a very good thing to know where it's at. So uh, generally the ones with the picks we want alive, the ones with the shovels dead, because the picks are what we use to get our charm pets. So if this wasn't a skeleton, I would hope that this one would be, because this is another nearby solo spawn that doesn't aggro others when you attack it. So for example, if I attack this conscript, the channeler will come, the Night Fear might come, the partisan definitely come. Um, and that one up there has the same issue, the one across the way would, this Night Fear would. So you have to be cognizant of what things will come when you know, cast a spell on them. So I pre-killed this one and then killed the slaves around here and got the picks off them and then gave it to that one. So that one's ready to go for a charm pet. Um, then further down here, this is the spot that I generally use to kill because absolutely nothing paths through here unless somebody dropped things to the bottom. And then I'll just show you, this is the top of the same tunnel that we were just looking at from the castle entrance, and this is actually kind of a trick for how it is that I move around in here. So this tunnel is, it drops off so the monsters won't chase you, so if you just run off this ledge then everything will stop chasing you. But yeah, see, we're back up here again. Could have just levied up here, so this is the full tour of all of the spaces that I use. So we'll be using this tunnel as a means for getting out after we grab the inspector, which is the guy we want today. And this is from Korocust room. So you want to be mindful when you're doing this that these guys are literally right here. They won't see anything you're doing unless you're within this area right here. So as you can see, this is line of sight of the war dog. So it'd be like right about here is your absolute maximum. So you don't want anything to really be down here. And then that invoker can add to potentially. So generally speaking, we fight on this terrain. When you get on the top half of this, between like here and here, the Ancient Guardian, when it comes back, will actually aggro. So you have to really be focused on keeping them below the half mark on this, and keeping them this direction of the half mark on this. And we do that with aggro spells and things along those lines. So hopefully nothing goes wrong with this, because there's been a good deal of talking up to this point. So we have, this is the layout of the room. So you got Courier, which is named PH. You got the Interrogator, which is the name PH, and then you got, I don't remember which one. I think it's the Officers, the Korocust PH itself, and then you got the Inspector, which is the guy we're going after today. So basically, you are working off of secondary aggro, so you'll root this guy, and then everybody that saw you root him is going to be the witnesses, and they will chase you. So if that root breaks or resists, then everything that sees that mob that you initially did a negative action towards will assist them permanently. And then they'll keep passing that on to other things. So basically, when you're pulling normal things that hate you, that's why you see that it's just like it's a train no matter what. Which in the case of secondary aggro, you can still do that with aggressive mobs, but it's very handy when you're looking at situations like this. So basically, we're going to hit this officer, and then the inspector will come. So you can see who came. It's those four right there, so those four are aggroed on. So it's not going to be any of the rest of them unless I aggro out. So I'm running on this little wall here to create a bug, basically, where they start pathing through things. So he should show up. You can see him flying right there. I'm going to hit the top of the ceiling so that I can land a root while he's on the Barshan here. And then I can back out, and I can go ahead and gate now, because I got my root in effect. So there's a few things there I can go back and try to explain a little bit more closely, but ultimately that's the pull. That went pretty much flawlessly. I don't think there's anything I could have done any better there. And then you always want to make sure you refresh your J-boots before you go back in case something ends up going long style. And I'm gonna get my Lich on. Switch to deflex tank. And I usually take gate off, but I'll make sure everything's clear before I do that. Just demonstrating the other method there for getting up. It is technically faster to dive bomb off into the slave pits than it is to come up to the tunnel and run down. So since we know we have him in the right spot, we'll just go ahead and grab our pet right now. And I have put on my back key a pet status thing so that I can tell when my pet has haste and it doesn't, so I'll focus on getting my pet haste. Gonna go ahead and engage, so if he breaks through it, he doesn't just walk off and ruin things. It does not summon, which is an important part of doing these things, is verifying what the mob does that you're fighting, so you know what's gonna happen. I'm bringing my pet forward a little bit there, so if it breaks for any reason, it's not gonna add that whole room to me. I can safely haste my pet with the 65% and go ahead and get him rolling. So I'm basically interchanging my first and fourth slots because they have things that I don't need as much for this. So if the pet broke right now, I would need to Screaming Terror and Thrall of Bones it. But if it, I can just keep him rooted and keep the pet controlled with just those 2 spell slots. And the Paralyzing Earth, Screaming Terror, Thrall of Bones, all 3 of those can control this fight completely. So you see how I was in the upper half right now and the pet's starting to push him up? He's definitely going to bring this guy. So now I got to deal with this. Man, this couldn't be going more poorly, but this is a great example of how things can go. There you go. This is how we do it when things go terribly. This is the deflex tanking. I don't have vexing on, but that's okay. There you go. That's the worst case scenario, is pretty much all the way around. The pet was pushing too much, and that's why the Ancient Guardian added. And that shows you that line almost perfectly for where he'll add. He got shoved like 3 times in a row, and all of a sudden he was up in range, and the Ancient Guardian came down. So then after we kill it, we'll just gate just to clear everything. This pet will walk back, and Guardian will forget about everything that just happened. That's basically it. So again, I'll show you the mechanics of that pool so it'll make a little bit more sense. So now you've seen it, and this will help explain how exactly it is that it works. So another part of that was that the accused traitor spawned in the middle of that, so usually you'd have a few more witnesses, but we only had the back like 3 or 4 right when I started it because they were the only ones that were close enough to witness. Usually there's a few more witnesses in general, which can actually make that pull somewhat irritating sometimes, because you'll get ones that are faster than the one that just spawned and things like that. So there's one mob in there that sows things, and sometimes they'll haste them as well, so I usually just deal with the haste because it's not that big of a deal on that particular mob. But if it was like dual wielding or something, it would be not great. So I was using some pathing there that I don't know that there's there's other ways to do it, but essentially I'm rooting that officer, which witnesses these ones. That Janissary would normally be in, but he was busy trying to kill the traitor. And then our inspector will start running, and then I start moving, and I go up this wall because I'm trying to avoid the trap that's on the bridge. So if you go over here, you get hit with this trap. If it'll go off, there it goes. So it's a frost AoE spell according to the resist. Yeah, generally speaking, not a great thing. But yeah, so I run across this, and as soon as I am in the air here, they start like trying to run through the wall. I'm not really sure. Like I can do this without this happening, but it just makes it a little bit easier that it does happen. But they'll start walking through the wall, and then they'll start falling from the ceiling up here, and then they'll literally just walk straight across this. So my 3 points that are important are the starting point, which is at the opening there, then coming off of the corner right here of this rock, I guess we'll call it, and then dodging the bridge um, trap, and then running over to this spot right here. And then he'll just start pathing right across everything and come right here, as you could see during that pull. Then I hit the top of this so that I can still like see them. Usually want to be a little bit lower, like right here. And then as soon as he comes into range, you can start casting root, and then he should land right in front of you, and you can root him. And then he'll be in the right spot. But at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the root timer. It could break early, anything could happen. So the other thing you can do is run him further up the tunnel here. So like if you have a failed route, like it doesn't land or you can't get the right angle or whatever, you can run further up the tunnel until you get to the flat spot here, and then you can cast it on him when he's way down here. As soon as he gets into range, you can cast it, and then he'll be stuck somewhere in this tunnel with root. You do the same thing, gate out, and then come back in and wait for him to have the root wear off, and then he'll walk right back past this. So you can get the pet ready at that point, have the pet sit right here, and then you can smack him as soon as he comes up past the line here that's considered the place to fight him, which actually there's kind of a line right here. It's literally right there. So you can, as soon as he comes back past this, you can smack him and then get the fight started, and that'll work too. So that's another way to do the same thing. Um, you can also, if you get a scenario where there's only like one mob that can see him, so like we'll say the guardians, out in the middle or something like that, and then you pull them this way, and then you can root the legionnaire and end up with secondary aggro on them or something like that. Actually, you know what? That's a terrible example, but that would be like a functional thing that could happen. But say like this flesh ripper is dead right there, and then you have him after you, but you can then root the dragoon and keep the aggro secondary. So there's scenarios where you can run him off to other locations, but the only reason I use this one is because it's a natural pathing point where he'll come back through. But you can end up with scenarios where you can root another mob and then run him off, and you can bring him up into the tunnels up in here, and then you can kill him up here, and much more room and much easier, but getting that kind of secondary aggro is pretty rough. You can do it though. But yeah, that's pretty much all of it. I use that for a lot of. I can do the whole Korocust room using that same strategy. It's a little bit harder though with some of the other spawns because they will be a little bit less likely to follow that same path. So for example, the interrogator tends to go along the right side here, which makes it so he won't run through the wall. So when you do the same thing with him, it's the same concept. You just want to bunch him up. So one thing you can do is cast your Divine Aura version, Quivering Veil of Zarn, or Harm Shield, or whatever you got, and then you can just tank them. You can get them all like bundled up, so they're in one little ball, and then you run the same pattern. And that when you run that pattern, you'll instead you'll do the long distance version. So you pull Interrogator out into the hall here. You'll run, way up here, and then you'll do the same thing I was saying before, where you just get line of sight from as far as you can, and then you'll cast Root on them in the middle of the bundle of guys. But a huge part of my success with this is having the high resist. So with none of my flowers on, I'm sitting at 100 minimum for all resist. So if you have DMF and all the flowers and arch shielding and all that good stuff on, then you get a huge boost to what you can resist. So I'm resisting most things these guys cast, whereas if you do that same thing and you have low resist, you might eat an ice comet or two and just die instantly. So it's worthy of mention though, because it's something that I generally don't think about, because I, for the most part, resist almost everything that gets casted on me. So when it comes to these mobs, but yeah, so that's pretty much it. And well, the only other thing you can do is, if you're just having trouble, just go ahead and run up the tunnel all the way, and you can come up here and you have all the time in the world to gate. Just be aware of who's camping around you. You don't want to train anybody. And pretty much that train will follow this path so that you understand what you're doing when this happens. So if you pull that entire ball up to the top here and then bail, but don't leave the zone right away, then what'll happen is they'll follow this path here. It'll be the longest way possible, but the only way that a monster should generally path on its own. So this is going to be past observer, which is another thing to keep in mind, is that if somebody's calling camp check and somebody says observer, then you might want to be a little bit more mindful when you're doing this, because that's the observer camp right there. And it'll be running all the way up this bridge, and this is the same bridge we bail off of to get into the slave pits. Um, Yeah, it'll be right up through here. So you just gotta, if there's a CE group or something like that, and you decide you're gonna overstay your welcome after you jump off that ledge, you're gonna kill somebody. So just definitely think about what you're doing while you're doing it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we uh, we got him dead, just like that. And got to show you all of the failures you can have mid-fight. We had a charm break and fought that off with hasted pet. We got the ad, like everything happened. So there you go. Enjoy and good luck if you try it.